Hello and welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you are doing well today. We have a very special watch for you today. We're looking at a very, very unique Bulova Ashford manufactured in 1950. This watch had a couple of names and has a very interesting history behind it. I think it is a good representation about what watch collectors are enjoying about watches right now and have grown to enjoy over the last 10 to 20 years. So I'm very excited to jump into this watch with you. Kind of builds off of the theme that we've covered with some of our other videos where we looked at some watches with some interesting lug designs. So very excited to jump into this watch with you. So without further ado, let's get into it. The last year or so has shown collectors not to underestimate the enjoyment they can get from smaller watches. Go back 15 years, watches had to be above 39 millimeters for collectors to enjoy them. Noses were sometimes turned up at watches that were below the 39 millimeter mark, let alone below the 35 millimeter mark. But as the collector community has grown, so too has the appreciation for smaller sized watches. The 1950s was a great era in watchmaking and an era that collectors have turned to as they continue to appreciate vintage watches, especially those of smaller case sizes. Bulova, one very popular brand during the era, did things very well. For those who do not know, Bulova is an American watch manufacturing company founded in 1875 by Joseph Bulova in New York City in New York. They began operations in New York's Maiden Lane and in 1912 began manufacturing watches at a factory they opened up in Biel, Switzerland. A big part of Bulova's history is their advertising. They began their advertising campaigns in the Saturday Evening Post in 1922 and even produced the first advertisement to be broadcast on radio in 1926. They produced many popular watch models, including the Accutron and Computron. The Ashford, which later was referred to as the Jordan, is another great example, and that's the watch that you see in front of you today. The example today is a great representation of what the brand produced. This Bulova was manufactured in 1950. The watch has a 10-karat rolled gold case that is 29 millimeters in diameter. You can see on the case back some details about when it was produced and the product, or the material that the case is manufactured out of. So being 29 millimeters, there is obviously, maybe not for everyone. There is some wear on the top of the lugs, which you can see a little bit on the corners of the lugs. There is some wear on the rolled gold watch. Now, knowing collectors, many would would not think about this model right away. 29 millimeters, it's probably too small for many people. But a very distinctive part of this watch are its lugs. The watch features these really unique knotted lugs at the four corners of the case. It also has quite traditional straight lugs that flare out from the from where the knots are on the case, which actually make the watch they're quite long if you look, and they don't slope super heavily, so it actually allows the watch to sit quite comfortably on the wrist. Looking at the dial, the watch features a cream pipe hand dial with applied gold hour markers. The patina of the dial is fairly even, and there's a really beautiful hue that takes one back to the 1950s. As mentioned, the gold hour markers match the sword hands nicely, and the printed 3, 6, 9, and 12-hour markers stand out in their black text. Based on databases that can be found online for historical Bulova pieces, it appears that the Ashford, this model, was launched in 1948. On our article on lifeandthewrist.com, you'll be able to see one of the advertisements for this watch. From 1948 to 1952, the watch can be seen in a variety of advertisements with the same name and was extremely popular model during this era. Given the uniqueness of the design and relative ease and wearability, no wonder the model was extremely popular. But in 1953, it appears the model name was renamed to the Jordan. It's difficult to identify why the model was renamed. There are many different theories as to why the watch was named, or why there are two names for this specific model. Some argue that Bulova renamed the watch to try and generate a resurgence of interest in the model. Others feel that whether the watch came on a bracelet or a strap played a part in the naming of the specific model. There are additional theories that state that the name change was connected to the ascension of His Majesty Hussein I, king of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, to the throne. He was gifted a limited edition clock, and so the model was named after him. This would obviously be a marketing play that a brand might have thought through to sell additional units, but it is worth adding that apparently there is this was documented in their 1951 annual report from Bulova, so there is some substance to this specific theory. The watch runs on the caliber 10 BC manual wind movement. The movement was made from 1944 to 1951 and was based on the AS1200 movement. If you take off the case back, the watch has the import code BXW on the balance wheel bridge. This was the import code used by Bulova to import movements from their factories in Biel, Switzerland to the USA market. They then were combined with their cases and sold to end users. The movement's attractive, well manufactured, and a workhorse movement. Looking at the case back, you'll see, if you can see right below the text at the top of the watch, one can see the serial number as well as LO indicating its production in 1950. Additionally, on the inside of the case back, one can see Bulova, 5th Avenue, New York printed. This obviously indicates the location of Bulova, the Bulova company during that time. So you're probably wondering what this watch looks like on the wrist. As I mentioned, 29mm is smaller, but if you take a look at my wrist with this watch on it, you can see that the lugs, the straight lugs that flare out from the knots that you see on each of the corners, actually allow for the watch to cover a substantial portion of my wrist and make it really, really fun to wear, even though the dial of this watch is only 29mm. So the watch truly, in my opinion, is a pleasure to wear on the wrist. Looking beyond the 29mm case size, one can really have an appreciation for the design of the lugs, case, and the history of this specific model. In addition to a really good looking watch on the wrist, one is able to appreciate a well-manufactured movement that stands up against many other watches of the era. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this extremely attractive Bulova Ashford manufactured in 1950. I do think it is a very unique model from Bulova, and I think represents a little bit of fun that you can have in watch collecting. The knots are really unique. The knotted lugs are very, very unique. I have seen watches manufactured by other companies who had very similar knotted lugs. I think there is a Patek Philippe model that has those knotted lugs, which I think is quite attractive. You know, it will be sad when I see this one go, because it really is an incredibly beautiful piece. As I mentioned in the video, there is an article on lifeandthewrist.com where we cover this watch. There are some advertisements that I posted on that website, on that article, so be sure to head over to lifeintherest.com and go to the editorial section of our website if you want to see those advertisements. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this Bulova Ashford. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a Bulova Ashford or a watch that has this knotted lug design? That can be the question for today, so let me know in the comments section below. If you are new to Life in the Wrist, be sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video with a friend who might be interested in watches. And if you wouldn't mind liking this video, it really does help me out. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.